In the quiet heart of Umuala, where the air carried the scent of dukist yams and whispers traveled faster than the evening breeze, a tale began that would leave tongues wagging and hearts trembling for generations. The villagers lived simply, bound by the rhythms of the earth and the wisdom of the elders. But peace can be deceptive, and beneath its surface, the unknown often stirs. Adamma, the widow of Nkem, was known for her resilience. When Nkem, her husband of 10 years, passed away suddenly, she bore her grief with dignity. No tears spilled in public, though her heart was a storm. Nkem had been a good man, strong, kind, and fiercely devoted to Adamma. His absence left a void, yet life demanded to move on. Crops needed tending, debts had to be paid, and Adamma returned to her fields, her hands blistered but her resolve unbroken. Months passed, and the village began to notice a change in her, a fullness to her form, a softness to her gait. The rumor was first whispered by the women at the stream. They saw her once slender frame blooming in ways that only one condition could explain. A condition impossible, scandalous even, for a widow who had buried her husband nearly a year ago. "She carries a child," one woman murmured, her voice heavy with both disbelief and condemnation. But whose? The question spread like wildfire. In a community where secrets had no sanctuary, Adamma's pregnancy became a riddle, a shame, and a curse all at once. She denied the rumors fiercely at first, but as her belly grew, denial became futile. The elders convened. Her fellow widows turned their backs. Even her sister, Nkairu, spoke of Adamma in hushed tones, her voice tinged with disappointment. Adamma endured it all in silence. She neither explained nor confessed. But within her, a fire burned, one of indignation and defiance. Only she knew the truth, or so she thought. One moonless night, as the village lay in slumber, Adamma awoke to the sound of heavy breathing by her bedside. The room was icy, though it was the peak of the dry season. Her heart pounded as she reached for the oil lamp, its flickering flame casting jagged shadows across the walls. "Nkem," she whispered, her voice trembling. The name escaped her lips before reason could restrain it. And then she saw it, him. Or, at least, a form resembling him. He stood at the edge of her bed, his eyes glowing like embers, his figure both familiar and alien. The scent of camwood lingered, the same he had worn in life, but there was something else now, a stench of earth and decay. "I have returned," the figure said, his voice deep, resonant, and otherworldly. "Adamma, did you think our bond could be severed by mere death? We are just getting started on this journey." Subscribe now to Afrotales TV, where every tale reveals the magic and mystery of African storytelling. Fear gripped her, but beneath it lay a strange comfort. This was Nkem, yet it wasn't. She stared, her lips dry and parted, as he continued. "You are mine, even in death," he said, stepping closer. "And you carry my child." Adamma gasped, her mind a storm of emotions, relief, terror, confusion. She clutched her belly instinctively, as if to shield it from whatever stood before her. "But how?" she managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. "You will understand in time," Nkem's spirit replied, his form flickering like a flame in the wind. "For now, remember, loyalty binds us still. Betray me, and you will know the wrath of the ancestors." Before she could utter another word, the figure vanished, leaving behind a silence so profound it roared in her ears. Adamma sat motionless, her thoughts racing. She questioned her sanity, but the weight of his presence lingered like a shadow. The next day, she went about her chores as though nothing had happened. The village women gossiped louder, the men eyed her with disdain, and the children whispered as she passed. Adamma ignored them all, but her mind was plagued with questions. Was she losing herself to grief, or was Nkem truly reaching out from beyond? And if so, what did it mean for her, and the child growing within her? As the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, a storm gathered in the distance. Not of rain, but of destiny, and it would soon engulf not only Adamma but all of Umuala in its ominous wake. The spirit had returned, and with it, the fragile boundary between the living and the dead began to blur. The storm that brewed over Umuala was not one of thunder and rain, but one of whispers and fear. It rippled through the village, unsettling even the most stoic of hearts. For Adamma, the weight of the previous night pressed heavily on her shoulders. She carried it into the day, her mind racing with unanswered questions and her heart pounding with unspoken fears. Though the village bustled as usual, children playing in the dusty streets, women pounding yams under the Baobab tree, an uneasy tension gripped the air whenever Adamma passed. The villagers had noticed something strange about her, an otherworldly aura that seemed to both repel and intrigue. It was as though she carried a secret too large for her mortal frame. Adamma returned to her home at dusk, her body weary from the day's work. As she washed her hands at the clay pot near her hut, she caught sight of her reflection in the water. Her face, once radiant with youth, seemed older, shadowed by worry. Her eyes, however, gleamed with an intensity she couldn't explain. Something within her was changing. That night, as she lay on her mat, sleep eluded her. The rhythmic chirping of crickets outside her hut was a poor lullaby for a mind consumed by doubt and fear. When her eyes finally closed, the dreams came, not the gentle, fragmented kind but vivid, unrelenting visions that felt more real than the waking world. In the dream, Adamma stood in the heart of the forest. The towering Iroko trees swayed though there was no wind, their leaves whispering in a language she couldn't understand. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, like blood. She turned, and there he was, Nkem, or what used to be Nkem. Adamma, he said, his voice a haunting blend of longing and authority. You have forgotten your promise. What promise? She asked, though her voice wavered. Her words sounded hollow, as though the forest swallowed them before they could reach him. You vowed to love me beyond life itself, Nkem replied, his figure looming closer. And yet, here you are, tempted to break our bond. Adamma frowned, her confusion growing. I have done nothing. You carry my child, he interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade. But loyalty is not just in words, Adamma. It is in action. Do not forget, the ancestors are watching. The vision shifted abruptly, as dreams often do. The forest vanished, replaced by the village square. Adamma stood among the villagers, their eyes piercing her like daggers. They chanted in unison, their voices low and menacing, "Traitor! Traitor! Traitor!" She tried to run, but her feet refused to move. Then, the chanting stopped, and the crowd parted, revealing Nkem once again. This time, his form was decayed, his face half consumed by the grave. Choose wisely, Adamma, he said. The living and the dead cannot coexist without consequence. She woke with a start, her breath ragged and her body drenched in sweat. The room was silent, save for the sound of her own pounding heart. Her eyes darted to the corner of the hut, where the shadows seemed darker than they should be. For a moment, she thought she saw movement, a flicker of something not entirely there, but when she blinked, it was gone. The days that followed were marked by strange occurrences. Her clay pot of water tipped over without warning, though there was no wind. Her door, secured firmly at night, was found ajar each morning. Most unsettling of all, she often felt the weight of unseen eyes watching her. The villagers, too, began to notice. One evening, Nkairu visited her, clutching a rosary tightly in her hands. Sister, she began hesitantly, there are rumors. They say you've been cursed. Adamma's jaw tightened. Rumors are like smoke, Nkairu. They rise from nothing and choke those who breathe them. But this is different, Nkairu persisted, lowering her voice. The elders say the spirits are angry with you. That you have broken some sacred law. Adamma's gaze hardened, though her heart thudded painfully. Let them speak. The spirits answered to no one, not even the elders. That night, as Adamma prepared for bed, she felt a cold draft sweep through her heart. She turned to close the window, but her feet froze when she saw it, a trail of footprints leading from her doorway to the center of the room, then stopping abruptly. They were larger than hers, the marks of a man's bare feet pressed deeply into the dirt floor. Her breath caught. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice trembling. The room grew colder, and the air seemed to thrum with an invisible energy. And then, a voice, a low, familiar voice, spoke from the shadows. "Do not test me, Adamma. You are mine." The walls of her resolve crumbled as fear surged through her. She sank to her knees, clutching her belly as tears spilled down her cheeks. The chilling truth became undeniable: her late husband had returned, not as a memory but as a force, bound by some ancient law she could not comprehend. And as the wind howled outside her heart, Adamma knew that the battle ahead was not just for her freedom but for her very soul. The spirits had awakened, and they would not rest until their justice was fulfilled. If you're enjoying the twists and turns of this tale, don't miss a single story. Subscribe now and become part of the Afro Tales family. Adamma awoke to the pale light of dawn streaming through the cracks in her heart. She had barely slept, her body trembling under the weight of her encounter. The footprints from the night before had vanished, leaving behind only the oppressive memory of the voice that haunted her dreams and her waking hours. Yet, she had no time to dwell on her fear. Life in Umuala demanded resilience, and as much as she wished to retreat from the world, she knew the villagers would not let her. Their curiosity had grown sharper, their glances colder, and their words more cutting with each passing day. As she fetched water from the stream, the woman fell silent when she approached, only to erupt into a flurry of whispers once her back was turned. "Her belly swells like the rains," one murmured. "But no man has claimed it." "Perhaps no man," another replied cryptically, her voice tinged with both fascination and fear. Adamma tightened her grip on the clay pot. The shame of their words beat deep, but what unnerved her more was the truth hidden within their speculations. She returned home quickly, her steps brisk, her mind spinning. That evening, she prepared her supper in silence. The crackling fire offered little comfort as the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch toward her. She ate sparingly, her appetite dulled by the suffocating tension in the air. When the last embers died, she extinguished her lamp and lay on her mat, dreading the night. As her eyes fluttered shut, a sound broke the silence, a faint but deliberate knocking on her door. Her heart leapt into her throat. She sat upright, straining to hear. The knock came again, this time louder, more insistent. "Who is it?" she called, her voice quivering. There was no answer, only the low groan of the wind. Summoning her courage, she wrapped a shawl around herself and approached the door. She hesitated, her hand trembling as it reached for the latch. When she opened it, the night greeted her with its cold, starless void. There was no one there. And yet, she felt it, a presence, heavy and oppressive, pressing against her like an unseen tide. She stepped back into her hut, bolting the door behind her. "Show yourself," she demanded, though her voice betrayed her fear. The air thickened, and a shadow materialized in the center of the room. It was Nkem, or what remained of him. His form was clearer now, less like a fleeting memory and more like a tangible specter. His eyes glowed faintly, and his features bore the marks of the grave. "You have been silent, Adamma," he said, his voice low and resonant. "Do you think you can ignore me?" She swallowed hard, her knees weakening under his gaze. "What do you want from me, Nkem?" "You're gone." You don't belong here. A bitter smile twisted his lips. Gone? No, Adamma. I remain because our bond was never severed. You are mine, and the child you carry binds us beyond death. Tears welled in her eyes. This cannot be. You are not of the living. Why do you torment me? He stepped closer, his presence chilling the room. Torment? No. I come with a purpose. You must prove your loyalty, Adamma. The child you carry will be my heir in the world of the living. You will name it after me and raise it to honor my legacy. Adamma's breath hitched. And if I refuse? His eyes darkened, and the air seemed to tremble with his anger. Refuse, and the wrath of the ancestors will fall upon you and this village. You think you are shorn now? That is but a whisper of the pain you will endure. Obey me, Adamma, and you will be spared. She shook her head, her voice breaking. This is madness. How can I carry the child of a spirit? How can I obey laws that no living soul understands? You are stronger than you think, he replied, his tone softening slightly. But you must accept your fate. Deny it, and the curse will consume not just you, but all you hold dear. The shadows around him swirled, and his form began to fade. Before disappearing entirely, he left her with a final, chilling command. Tomorrow, at dusk, you will come to the Baobab tree in the forest. There, you will swear your loyalty before the spirits. Adamma collapsed onto her mat, her mind a whirlwind of despair and confusion. How could she obey a command so unnatural, so impossible? And yet, how could she defy a force so powerful, so relentless? The boundaries of her world had crumbled, leaving her stranded between the living and the dead. The next morning, she sought the guidance of the village priestess, Mama Uche. A woman of great wisdom, Mama Uche was said to commune with the ancestors and see beyond the veil of the mortal world. Adamma found her tending to her garden, her gnawed hands deftly plucking weeds from the soil. Mama Uche, Adamma began, her voice shaking, I need your help. The old woman looked up, her sharp eyes narrowing. Help? From the ancestors or from me? Adamma hesitated, then blurted, from anyone who can tell me how to escape a spirit's wrath. Mama Uche's expression darkened. Spirits do not act without cause. Tell me, child, what have you done to invite such trouble? As Adamma recounted her tale, the priestess listened intently, her face unreadable. When Adamma finished, Mama Uche let out a heavy sigh. This is no ordinary spirit, Adamma. Nkem was bound to you in life, and now he binds you in death. But bonds, no matter how strong, can be broken if you have the courage to pay the price. What price? Adamma asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mama Uche leaned in, her gaze piercing. The price of truth. Are you ready to face it? Adamma nodded hesitantly, though her heart trembled at the thought. Little did she know, the truth would lead her deeper into the shadows than she ever imagined. If you're enjoying the twists and turns of this tale, don't miss a single story. Subscribe now and become part of the Afro Tales family. The truth. A concept so simple in word yet so labyrinthine in its implications. As Adamma sat before Mama Uche, the weight of that word settled upon her like a heavy shroud. The priestess, with her piercing eyes and cryptic demeanor, seemed to look not just at Adamma but through her, as though unearthing secrets Adamma herself did not yet know. Mama Uche gestured toward a stool. Sit, she commanded, her voice steady, the authority of generations woven into her tone. If you seek answers, you must prepare yourself. What lies ahead will demand more of you than mere courage. Adamma obeyed, lowering herself onto the stool. The priestess reached for a bundle of herbs, their sharp scent filling the air as she crushed them between her palms. She sprinkled the fragments onto a small fire in the corner of the hut. The flames hissed and crackled, releasing a thick, swirling smoke that danced in hypnotic patterns. "Close your eyes," Mama Uche instructed. The ancestors do not reveal their wisdom to eyes blinded by fear. Listen to the smoke, feel its rhythm, and open your heart. Adamma hesitated but did as she was told. The smoke coiled around her, warm and oddly comforting. At first, there was silence, save for the soft crackling of the fire. Then, faint whispers began to emerge, murmurs that grew louder, sharper, until they formed discernible words. "Why do you seek us, child?" the voices asked in unison, an eerie harmony that resonated in Adamma's bones. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling as she replied, "I seek freedom from the spirit of my husband, who claims my life as his." The whispers paused, as though considering her plea. Then they returned, colder, harsher. "Freedom is not given, it is earned. Do you have the strength to face the truth that binds you?" Adamma clenched her fist, her nails digging into her palms. "I will do whatever it takes." The air grew heavier, the smoke swirling faster. And then, without warning, Adamma was no longer in the hut. She stood in a vast, open plain, the sky above her dark and turbulent. Before her loomed a figure, not Nkem, but something far older, far more powerful. It was cloaked in shadow, its features obscured, but its presence was undeniable. "You are not here by accident," the figure said, its voice a deep rumble. "Do you know why your husband clings to you, even in death?" Adamma shook her head, her fear mounting. "I don't understand. He was a good man. He loved me." The figure seemed to sigh, a sound that carried both sorrow and impatience. "Love can bind, but so too can betrayal. Nkem's spirit remains because his death was not as it seemed." Adamma froze, her heart racing. What do you mean?" The figure extended an arm, pointing toward the horizon. As Adamma followed its gesture, the plain transformed into a scene from the past, a memory she had long buried. She saw herself and Nkem in their hut, their voices raised in argument. He had been furious that day, accusing her of something she had denied vehemently. "You've changed, Adamma," he had said, his voice shaking with anger. "There's a distance between us that I cannot bridge. What are you hiding?" Adamma had not answered. Instead, she had turned away, her silence louder than any confession. The scene shifted, revealing Nkem leaving their home that night, his face etched with pain. Hours later, he was found dead in the forest, his body cold and lifeless. The figure's voice broke through her reverie. "His spirit lingers because his questions were never answered. The bond you shared has been poisoned by the secrets you kept." Tears streamed down Adamma's face as the weight of the revelation sank in. She had loved Nkem, but she had also betrayed him in ways she could never admit, not even to herself. And now, that betrayal tethered his soul to hers, dragging them both into a torment that defied death. "What must I do?" she asked, her voice breaking. "How do I set him free?" The figure stepped closer, its presence overwhelming. "You must confront him beneath the Baobab tree. Speak the truth that binds you, no matter the cost. Only then can the bond be severed." The vision faded, and Adamma found herself back in the priestess's hut, her body trembling. Mama Uche was watching her expression grave. "The ancestors have spoken," the priestess said. "Will you do what must be done?" Adamma hesitated, the enormity of the task pressing down on her. To reveal the truth would mean facing not only Nkem's wrath but the judgment of the entire village. Yet, to remain silent was to condemn herself, and perhaps even her unborn child, to an existence haunted by his spirit. "I will go," she said finally, her voice firm despite the fear that gripped her. "I will face him." Mama Uche nodded, her eyes softening with a hint of respect. Then may the ancestors guide your steps. But remember, child, the truth is a double-edged sword. It can set you free, but it can also cut deeper than any lie. As Adamma left the hut, the weight of her decision settled over her like a cloak. The sun was sinking low on the horizon, its crimson light painting the village in hues of fire and blood. She made her way toward the forest, each step heavier than the last. The baobab tree awaited her, its ancient branches reaching skyward like the arms of a giant. And beneath its shadow, the spirits of the past gathered, their whispers carried on the wind. Adamma stood at the threshold of truth, knowing that once she crossed it, there would be no turning back. The baobab tree loomed before Adamma like a sentinel of the ages, its thick, knotted trunk rising into the twilight sky. The air beneath its sprawling branches was unnaturally still, as though the world itself had paused to bear witness. Shadows clung to the ground like a living thing, and the faint hum of unseen forces vibrated in Adamma's chest. She stood at the edge of the clearing, her heart pounding in her ears. The memory of Mama Uche's words echoed in her mind: the truth is a double-edged sword. It can set you free, but it can also cut deeper than any lie. Summoning all her courage, Adamma stepped forward. The moment her feet touched the earth beneath the tree, a sharp wind tore through the clearing, extinguishing the light of the setting sun. Darkness enveloped her, broken only by the faint glow of the spirit that materialized before her. It was Nkem. His spectral form was more defined than ever, his features a haunting blend of the man she had loved and the shadow of what he had become. His eyes burned with an intensity that pierced straight to her soul. "You came," he said, his voice resonating with both relief and accusation. "Good. We can finally end this." Adamma took a shaky breath. "Nkem," she began, her voice trembling. "I have come to speak the truth, as the ancestors demand." He tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "The truth? After all this time? Why now, Adamma?" "Because I can no longer bear this," she replied, her hand instinctively cradling her belly. "Your presence haunts me, your demands suffocate me. I need to understand why you linger, and I need to set you free." His gaze softened for a moment, but the fire in his eyes quickly returned. "You know why I linger," he said. "It is your silence that binds me. The silence you kept on the night I died." Adamma's legs threatened to buckle, but she steadied herself, her nails digging into her palms. The truth she had buried for so long clawed its way to the surface, raw and unrelenting. I betrayed you, Nkem," she confessed, her voice breaking. "Not in the way the villagers believe, but in my heart. I grew resentful of you, of our life. I felt trapped, unfulfilled. When we argued that night, I let my anger drive you away. I said nothing to stop you from leaving, even when I knew the forest was dangerous after dark." Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. "You let me go," Nkem said, his tone low and cold. "Knowing I would not return." Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. "Yes. And when they found your body, I told myself it was fate, that it was out of my hands. But in my heart, I knew. I knew I had sent you to your death." The wind swirled violently around them, carrying the cries of unseen spirits. Nkem's form flickered, his features contorting with a mix of rage and sorrow. "You abandoned me," he said, his voice rising like a tempest. "And yet you weep for yourself, for the life you chose to rebuild without me." Adamma fell to her knees, her sobs racking her body. "I have carried this guilt every day since you died. I have tried to move forward, but your shadow follows me. I cannot live like this, Nkem. If there is anything left of the man I loved, release me from this torment." For a long moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, Nkem's form began to shift. The fiery intensity in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a mournful gaze. His voice, when he spoke, was softer, almost human. "The ancestors have heard you," he said. "Your truth has lifted the veil. But freedom comes at a cost, Adamma. Are you willing to pay it?" She looked up at him, her tears glistening in the faint light. "I will do whatever it takes." He extended a hand, the edges of his spectral form glowing faintly. "Swear upon this sacred ground that you will honor the bond we shared, not in life, but in memory. Promise to raise our child with the truth of who we were, both the light and the shadow." Adamma hesitated, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. Then, she reached out, her trembling hand passing through his. "I swear it," she said, her voice steady despite the tears. The moment the words left her lips, a brilliant light erupted from the baobab tree. The air filled with the sound of 1,000 voices, rising in a harmonious crescendo. Nkem's form began to dissolve, his features softening into a peaceful smile. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice fading like a distant echo. "You have set us both free." And then he was gone. The wind stilled, the darkness lifted, and the clearing fell silent once more. Adamma remained on her knees, her heart both heavy and light. She felt the warmth of the earth beneath her, the ancient strength of the baobab tree grounding her in its embrace. The truth had been spoken, and with it came liberation, both for her and the spirit of the man she had loved. As she rose to her feet and turned toward the village, she felt a new resolve within her. The road ahead would not be easy, but she was no longer bound by the shadows of her past. The child within her would carry the legacy of both love and redemption, and through it, she would honor the bond that even death could not sever. The baobab tree stood as a silent witness, its branches reaching skyward as if to touch the heavens. And as Adamma walked away, the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, illuminating her path with the promise of a new beginning. Before we close tonight's tale, let me leave you with a question that might keep you awake long after the stars have risen. Why do the king's cattle keep vanishing at the stroke of midnight? The guards have failed, the villagers are baffled, and whispers of sorcery spread like wildfire. Only a young shepherd, armed with courage and wit, dares to unravel the mystery. But what he discovers in the moonlit shadows will defy all logic, and forever alter his destiny. Join us on the next market day to unravel why the king's cattle kept disappearing at midnight. This is a story of courage, wit, and confronting the unknown. Until then, may the ancestors watch over you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one.